Welcome, my name is Colleen Tote and I'm a sewing specialist for Fons and Porter. In this Quilting Quickly tutorial, I'm going to show you how to put together the project called Island Breeze Tote. You can see here on the Work Center. We're using a great selection of batik fabrics, and we're going to be using 5-inch squares, and the number of squares and the background or the accompanying fabric you can find in the pattern by visiting our website. Okay, we're going to take all these wonderful 5-inch squares and we're going to be cutting them into smaller pieces. The nice part about using the 5-inch piece is that the collection comes together and you get a great variety of prints all coordinated for you. So if that's the part of the quilting that kind of gives you pause, this is a great way to use those pre-cuts. So we're going to be cutting into each of those 5-inch squares, and in order to cut those up, you would follow the instructions, but I've also diagrammed it out here on fabric. What we're going to be cutting is 1 1/4 inch strips off of those 5-inch squares, but we're only going to use 3.5 inches of them, so we're going to have some little squares left. But that's okay, it's not too much waste, but 4 strips off of each of the 5-inch strips, or 5-inch squares in our collection. So we're going to have pieces that look like this, and when we're done cutting the number needed for that pattern, then you can set those aside. You are also going to be cutting from some wonderful turquoise fabric, the handles, the strip that goes along the top of the bag, the pieces that creates the bottom of the bag, and its lining. So once you have those cut, it's time to get into the construction. Put those under. The first thing we have you construct is the handle unit, and there are 2 of those. So I've got 2 to show. They're very straightforward in their construction. You're going to be working with long strips of fabric and in the batiks, you can't really tell a right side or wrong side, but you would be pressing them. If you were using another style of fabric, you would be pressing it so wrong sides together. You're using a piece that looks like this. So press it in half down the middle, and then opening it up, you're going to be putting a piece of interfacing, because the handles take all the stress in a bag. You want to reinforce those and make those stronger and tougher so they can take the abuse that we give them when we fill them up and carry them. This is a piece of interfacing. It's a heavy weight. It has fusible adhesive on one side and not the other. So what we're going to do is you're going to be placing that interfacing down the very center of your handle. And probably the easiest way is let's back up one more. I fold it in half. You're going to take it to the iron, and then you're going to fold those long outer edges toward the center, and then you would have a crease here, and then fold the other side in to meet like this. And I have one already pressed, so let's look at that one. It gives you kind of guidelines of where to place that interfacing then. I kind of jumped ahead. We open it up, and you'll see that there are 3 creases down this handle now. And the interfacing, cut to the directions specific, how wide to make that. And then we'll lay down right inside of those pieces, and you'll go in with your iron, and following your manufacturer's instructions, set your iron to the temperature and the amount of time it takes for that fusible to adhere well. So you could iron that all in place, then fold those edges back towards the center, and then you're going to do one more fold, and you've already put kind of a memory into it because you fold it in half, so your fabric just kind of knows to fold right in half, nice and neat like this. And that gives you 2 layers of the interfacing to stabilize your handle. Then you just need to stitch approximately 1/4 inch from each side of the handle to give it strength and to close those folds together. So you would do that twice to create the 2 handles for your bag. Okay, we can set those aside, then we have those created. We'll be putting those into our bag when we get to that step. Now all those little pieces that you created or cut, we are going to be making little strip sets like this. The reason why, the nice part about having such a variety is you can just put all these pieces beside you and just basically pick up 4 pieces and put them together into a strip set. You might want to make sure that you don't have 2 of one same print in the same bar, but it really won't make much difference because it's going to get very scrambled looking like this in the end. So you're going to create strip sets. Remember to press as you go. I have all my seam allowances just going in one direction. So you're going to create a little strip set like that. And then you're going to come in and you're going to be creating, I'll show you what our goal is here, 2 pieces that are going to be actually 3 rows wide. So I'm just in the process of completing this row. I would attach this piece, and you can see I've altered the direction or the orientation of the strip set each time in this row, and then altered it again here and in the third row. So it's simply piece here with a 1/4 inch seam, press toward the bar that doesn't have any seam allowances, and then join the rows together to create the whole entire 3-row strip set and you will need 2 like that. Well, let's keep this one off to the side. So we have started to assemble the outer piece of our bag, because you can see that the piecing goes all the way around. But what we do is create the bag kind of from top down through the bottom and up to the back. So we have a small bar of turquoise here, which is the top of the bag, then a pieced section, then the bottom of our bag, and the diagrams in your in the pattern will show you exactly how this is created. And then slide that along. You would insert that second piece like this. I'm going to run out of room in the sewing center here. And this piece. And then the last bar that would be on the other side of your bag. So all these are very simple seaming, 1/4 inch seam here, 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 and here. And then you would have created the entire outer piece of your bag. And I will show you one that's already assembled. And at this point, you're actually ready to quilt this part of your bag. So I have one that's already quilted, and we will talk about that step here. You can see that I've assembled the entire outer shell of my bag. And before I quilted it, I brought in just batting. You can see there's no backing here because we're going to have lining in our bag, so there's no sense in putting a backing fabric. But the batting layer, I used spray adhesive, quick and easy to adhere my outer shell of my bag to the batting. Now the batting was oversized while I was doing my quilting, just in case there's any little shift. I want the batting to be all the way to the outer edge of my bag. Then this one was done with a large kind of wave stitch, but because these machines have so many great stitches in them, I found this kind of a wave stitch, a little bit smaller scale than the original, but I found it that in my machine that I could set and enlarge it, and I could get the same kind of effect. So if you have one of those machines with all those great stitches in it, try one out. See if it becomes now your quilting. The fun part was that I just had to go back and forth and just drive it straight through the machine and back again, and I could create that same kind of effect by using my machine and not have to worry about trying to drive it in a perfect lazy line myself. I could let the machine do it. Then, once I got all the machine quilting done, I went in and I trimmed the batting right up to the edge of my bag. Now it's going to be ready for us to create the actual bag itself. So what we do, right sides together, just like this. We're going to use a 1/4 inch seam, and this is the top of my bag because that's the narrow turquoise that you see here on the bag. We're just going to be putting in a 1/4 inch seam here and a 1/4 inch seam along here. Now if I were to stop there, my bag wouldn't have a bottom. It would be sitting on a ridge. So what I do need to do is create this boxed shape on the bottom of my bag so that it will stand up. And I'll show you that on the lining because the skill's repeated for the outer part of the bag. So I've got my lining here, my lining fabric. I've backed it with the interfacing, the same interfacing that I used on the handle. So again, use the iron setting and the amount of time to adhere the interfacing to the lining fabric. This is all one continuous piece of fabric all the way around. I've seamed 1/4 inch seam on both sides, just like I do the outer part of my bag. I do leave an opening, and it will tell you to leave at least a 4 inch opening, but anywhere from 4 to 6 inches, enough so that you can turn the bag at the very end step. So this is an opening here. I've stitched here and reinforced my ends, but leave this opening for turning later. Now over here you can start to see I've created somewhat of a wing, and I'm going to be doing the same thing on this side because that's going to become the boxed bottom of my bag. So by putting my hand in here, opening up this piece. Now if I have a kind of a crease along here, I'll know that this crease has to match with this seam. This, kind of like a dog ear. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to place a line for stitching. I'm going to double check, so my seam is approximately right. It's just shifted a little bit. My fold was here and my seam on the other side, so I know that this is lined up properly. I'm going to come in and I'm just going to mark on here so I remember and you will remember. It's 3 inches from this point to where I want to make a marking line. So if I come in at, well, let's turn this so I've got 3 inches. And I want my diagonal also, because that diagonal is going to help me in a minute. So 1, 2, 3 inches. 3 inches from the tip out is where I want to mark along here. This diagonal line will line up right with the fold of my bag, and then I can come in and mark my stitching line for the bottom of my bag, like this. So now it's 3 inches from tip to this line, and I know that's where I need to stitch. So it doesn't slide out of place, I'll put just a couple of pins. This is the process you will do also on the outside of your bag, and bottom 2 corners and the 2 corners of the lining. Then we just take it under the sewing machine and reinforce at the beginning of your seam, the couple of stitches, and then stitch. Now if your bag is going to be carrying a lot of heavy items like books or magazines, shoes for the gym, you can even come back in after you stitched once and do a second line of stitching, reinforce on the other end. This depends on how heavy duty you're going to be using your bag. So you could come in foreseeably and put a little second line of stitching parallel to it to reinforce. But this bag probably won't carry quite as much heavy item, so I'm going to just take away this outer triangle. This is can be reduced. I've already stitched this one, so I can do the same process here. Just use a scissors and reduce that. And now my lining can stand on its own. So it's got a bottom. And in a minute, we're going to come back and I'll show you how to assemble and create the handles for your bag. Okay, now we're back. We've got the 2 parts of our bag constructed and ready to go, and this is the lining, and I have kept it wrong side to the outside, and the outer part of the bag has been turned so the 2 fabrics face each other. What we do is one inside of the other, they fit nicely, and then we have to place our handles within those layers. And so what we want to do is make sure that we keep them straight, come up, so that when we place these, they won't become twisted inside of our bag. And you're going to measure over 6 inches from the side seam over and place one handle between the layers and pin it in place. So just a simple little pin to hold it between layers, and then 6 inches from the other side of your side seam here over. You'll want to mark and insert your handle on this. Keep all the layers nice and flat and pin your handle in place there, and then you'll repeat the same thing with the second handle on the other side of your bag. Once you have everything pinned in place, and you can align your side seams with a pin, and you're going to come in with your sewing machine and you're going to stitch all the way around 1/4 inch from that cut edge all along that part of the bag. Now everything is encased and you need to be able to turn the bag. Remember, we created that opening that we left on one side of our bag, that's where we're going to turn the entire thing inside out. And just to show you that it can come through that little opening, the bag that you saw here I had turned back. So here we go. There's the hole in the side. Everything's been stitched along that top edge. We can reach in here, grab hold of the handles and the quilted part of the bag, and it all will come nice and clean through that hole. And remember when we were stitching that side seam and leaving that opening, I said to reinforce your start and stop? That's why, because you're going to put a little stress on that part of the lining, but it can easily be turned right side out, and then the lining going towards the inside of the bag. Your handles up, and then you're going to come in at the very last, and you're going to edge stitch just about 1/8 of an inch all the way along the very top edge that will keep your handles in place. So that's Island Breeze Tote. Now, you see a quilt behind me, and some of you will mention on YouTube or try to reach out and say, what's the quilt behind me? The quilt you see behind me is from the same fabric line. It will be in Quilting Quickly September, October, so be looking for that one in the future. For more of our videos, visit our website. Thanks for joining me today.